All right, welcome back to the PT Powerhouse podcast. I am Dr. Becky, and this is Dr. Corrie, and this is where we're spilling the tea of all the things, whether it's Genesis, whether it's tea on work culture, whether it's being sassy about how we treat, how we hate Kegels. It's literally all the things, and we're excited for episode 2.
Yeah.
Yay!
So this episode's about what, Dr. Becky?
This episode is about my first permanent hire.
Yes.
And kind of all the things that came with that and what we went through, what I learned, like looking back, kind of all of that stuff.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, it's all good things, but it's kind of like just how we grew, you know, like we just figured it out as we went. And so it's fun to just kind of like recount that and be like, wow, we literally knew nothing, and then here we are now. How'd we do that? Let's talk about it.
It's funny, I was helping someone on our staff the other day with like a PT Everywhere problem, like our system that we use, and they were like, you know so much about PT Everywhere. And I was like, yeah, I spent a lot of hours messing things up and then fixing it.
Yeah.
So that just brings me back to the old times. Yeah, so your first hire. So we kind of talked about this in the last episode a little bit, but what made you decide to be like, I need a permanent? Like full-time? You were specifically on your ad, you were like full-time, available ASAP. Like what?
Literally yesterday,
like,
please.
Please take my patients.
Yes,
yeah,
literally.
Like
so I was working well over 40 hours a week. I was treating full-time while also trying to, why I was continuing to market, I don't know. It was more like networking.
Yeah.
Which
you can't stop once you start.
No,
frankly.
you can't. You can't because you've made these relationships with people, right? So like people were wanting to have dinner with me, they were wanting to come meet me for lunches or whatever, and then like I also wanted to keep up the Genesis reputation and the name and like meet people. So like I was treating a bunch of patients, I was working Saturdays. I mean, I had no like breaks at all, and so I was honestly just like, this is not the vibe. This is not what I like pictured whenever I launched my part-time mom job, is what I always call it. And so I was like, I either have to stop taking patients and make a wait list and refer them elsewhere or hire. And I decided to hire. And so like we talked about last episode a little bit, was I actually reached out to a friend and colleague from my program I went to, Kendra, love her. And I was like, Kendra, can you please just like come like help me while I figure the heck out like what I'm going to do? Because I knew Kendra was moving. Yeah. And so she came on in about April of 2020 and I knew she was moving, and I think it was July. So I knew I only had her for a few months, but I was like, can you like at least help build up this caseload, take people off of my caseload while I figure out how to hire a PT. Like, I don't know how to do this, you know? And so that's kind of what was going down in the good old spring.
Like, I'm growing.
Yeah. Not to mention COVID had just happened.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. To both of us in very different seasons.
Yes.
So yeah. So, I mean, spoiler alert, I was Becky's first, like, formal, long-term hired.
Yeah, like you were my first full-time employee. Kendra was, I mean,
she was
honestly,
saving you.
She saved me. She was technically contract. Yeah. So, which even back then I didn't know what that was. Like, I was just like, so I'm hiring you for 3 months? Great. And you're a 1099? Great. My attorney told me to say that, you know? Yeah. Like, I had no idea. And she was like, great. You know, she didn't know either. She was just trying to be a good friend. And yeah, but you were my first, like, W-2, full-time, like, benefits, like, person.
Like, hire. Like, this business is going to be bigger than just you.
Yeah, like, this is, we're moving forward with this.
Which is crazy. It's crazy to think about that now, like, how so much has changed. And that season was just, like, very crazy for both of us. So, from my perspective, part of the reason I chose physical therapy was because of, like, job security.
Which, if you know, she's about to tell you her story, but like Yeah.
Look
anyway.
like LOL in 2020. So I was supposed to I did graduate in May of 2020, which was iffy at a certain point because like our clinicals got cut short. Like shit just really hit the fan for everyone everywhere in March of 2020. And so I was home studying for boards, living with my parents.
Which kept getting rescheduled.
Yeah, they kept getting rescheduled. It was a complete nightmare, which if you're a PT and you've taken boards, you know, like it's like training for a marathon.
Yeah.
Like you're like, I am going to be ready to crush boards on this specific date. And then it's like if someone kept moving your marathon like forward and backward into a different location and like being like, you might be able to take it here at this time, but you also might not. So it was kind of a total nightmare. Anyway, yeah, that was me. I was a new grad in March of 2020, and I was frantically applying for jobs that I thought I would actually want. I was very determined to get a job that I wanted. Like so many of my classmates ended up at jobs that like were gonna pay the bills, and I respect that decision. It makes a lot of sense, especially at that time. But I was like kind of this mindset where I was like, I have worked too long and too hard to do something I hate with my doctorate.
Yeah.
Like
yes.
I am not about that life. And so I was just like frantically on every job board. I was asking around. I was asking my colleagues, and I stumbled upon an advertisement for a position on Indeed.
The only one I ever posted on Indeed.com.
But it was just fate. It was God. I literally hit quick apply while I was watching church online with my parents. Yeah, I stayed on Indeed. I probably applied to 100 jobs. I probably applied to 100 jobs, and a lot of them responded, and they were like, we're on a hiring freeze, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, that's fine. Makes sense.
There's like a global pandemic. It's
fine. And so you were actually the first person to send me, like the first like real person to email me back.
Which to this day, I'm still a fast emailer backer.
You really are, which is impressive because I know if your inbox is anything like mine, which I'm sure it is, it's like overflowing.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, you're very prompt, you're very respectful of other people's time. And so, yeah, Becky sent me an email back and was like, could you interview on this day? It was the day after my board exam.
Which I also didn't know at the time.
You're just a stranger.
Corey's like, absolutely. Yes.
I was like, for sure, yes. I would love to interview on that day. It was just a Zoom interview. So we did
because low-key, I was just making sure that Corrie had like which we'll talk about in future episodes. But I was like, I just gotta make sure this girl can even like fit in to my vibe.
I love that you had a vibe before your first hire, which is again one of the things that like attracted me to the position. So I stalked you. I Googled everything. I was studying for my boards, and I was like, this is equally important. So I took my boards on, I want to say it was like a Tuesday, and specifically did not go out. I mean, you couldn't really go out and party in March of 2020, but I was going to party with some of my close group of friends that night, and I was like, I have an interview in the morning. So I won't be doing that. So I did a Zoom interview with Becky, and you were very upfront and personable, which I loved, and you were interested in me, which was great. And you invited me for like an in-person interview.
Yes, I did.
I'm curious from your perspective, like, because Zoom is so awkward. Like, I was literally in, like, my bedroom.
Especially back then. No one was on Zoom. And we're just like, okay, I guess this is, like, a virtual interview.
Yeah. I was, like, professionally dressed.
Yeah, you were.
And everything. Yeah. What made you, like, look at that Zoom interview and be like, come in for an in-person interview?
So, this is such a hard question that I get a lot, because I work with a lot of coaching clients that are trying to hire, and like, how do we know who like to hire? And like, the hard part is I have a really good gut, and I just know that, and I always have, and like, my gut instinct is, it's usually not going to steer me wrong, But I've worked hard recently on like diving into like what does it actually mean? Like what has made up my gut, and like there has to be some like concrete things that make up my gut to help me know like, okay, this person has this, and this. So like looking back, I think that I picked up on the fact that like you were very nice. So if I'm interviewing someone who's going to be talking to my patients and like putting off the Genesis vibe, right? Like who is Genesis? If someone's coming to Corrie, they're coming to Genesis. So like you have got to be like so nice, in my opinion. And so that immediately hit me. I was like, she's so nice. Patients will love her. Like right off the bat, I was like, okay, done. Like patients are going to love this girl. And then I also think I do remember you like smiled a lot, and that kind of goes on with nice, but it also is like a little bit of just like personable, and it just kind of falls in the same envelope of like patients are gonna love her, I guess. And so that was like my top thing is like, will patients accept this person as Genesis, you know?
Yeah.
And that kind of, before I knew that what I was looking for was like, quote, that formed what it was like, are they nice, likable? Will patients like know that they're like a Genesis therapist? And then another big thing that stood out to me was you were just like willing to like learn. You were just like, I will literally like do anything to learn anything. I just want to be here. Like I'll take the course. I will observe. I will shadow. I will market. Like you were just like game. You know, like I think because I needed for that specific position. Yeah. I was not going to be able to go like market for the new location because I had a full caseload over here. And so I needed someone that was like, absolutely, I'll go like help find my own patients, you know, and like just be open to being like, I'll help, you know. And so I think those were like big things that drew me to be like, okay, I'm going to bring her in person so she can see, because I felt like that first interview is always like, do I get the vibe of like, you can fit in here? Even if like the person I'm interviewing doesn't know that, I'm like, this is really just like, does she have it or not? And if she has it, which you did, then I bring them in. And so I brought you in, and that's more of like a thing to see if you feel like you're a good fit for like what our day-to-day looks like, being with me, seeing what is pelvic floor PT, like, because if you don't feel like you're a good fit, I don't want to hire you either. Yeah. Like you 100%. Need to want to be here. So that's kind of like that. And that's why I wanted to have you in, because I was like, she has it. Let me see if she like actually wants this. Wants this. Yeah. So. Yeah.
No, I think that's so true. And it kind of went both ways. Like I was attracted to the fact that you had a vision for what you were looking for. And I think I internally, especially after both of the first interviews, I was like, I am it. Like, I can do this.
Yeah. And you definitely like put that off. Like, I was like, yes, like she can do this. Like, I just knew.
I remember literally saying, like, I will do anything I need to do.
I remember too. I literally remember that, and I was like, perfect. Like, that's literally perfect, because, like, I don't know what this job is going to be, but, like, we're going to figure it out.
Well, yeah, because frankly, back then, since it was really an extension of you, it was the job, and you were doing your own marketing, admin, plan of cares, laundry.
Yes, I forgot about that.
Like patient. Oh my gosh, worst. And then even the laundry. Yeah. So like I was taking the laundry home at the end of every day, washing and drying and folding and bringing it back for the next day. Which again, I was willing to do that for this job because I knew I wanted to specialize in pelvic health, even though I didn't have any training yet. So you were willing to pay for my courses and train me yourself, which was huge. And the earning potential was very high. Yeah. So I was kind of in a position where I was like, I know I have 6 months till I have to pay my loans. Joke's on all of us. Like, they're still on pause.
They're on pause still.
Yeah. But I was like, okay, I have 6 months till loans kick in. I was kind of in the mindset of like, if I really want this to work, but even if it doesn't work, I will just be forced to leave and that'll be sad. And one of my best friends reminds me of this to this day, because at like 3 months, I was like, I'm not that full. I'm not making that much money. Like, I know I can do this, but it's just been harder than I thought it would be. And then, like, I set up some really crucial marketing meetings, like, that same month. And 6 months later, I was like, I have too many patients. I'm exhausted. I literally started talking to you about hiring a third person. And one of my best friends to this day, anytime something comes up where I'm like, I'm just tired, I don't know if I can do this, she's like, do you remember how you were like, I'm never going to have any patients? And it's just so funny to think back on now. But yeah, like, you, for your first hire, for that point of the growth of Genesis, like, you really needed someone willing to do it all.
Yeah.
And
figure it out with me. Like, I was very like, I'm happy to teach you pelvic floor stuff, but I was pretty upfront with, like, I'm new at this business thing. Like, we're going to learn it together.
Which I appreciated.
Yeah.
So, it was crazy, though.
And I remember once you got full, you know, like, halfway through the year, I will never forget you coming to me of just, like, asking to hire an admin position.
Well, because I was like, I can't even call patients back anymore. Like, I'm too full. I was double booking myself on accident. Like, just, we needed a professional.
Yes. And it's funny because, like, I didn't have as many patients on my caseload as you because I was still, like, momming it up. And, like, the whole point of bringing someone else on was so I could, like, delete or move patients off of my load. And so I, like, had a little bit more admin time for my location because we split. Like, you did your location, I did my location. And so I remember, like, being like, oh shit, like, she's asking for this. If I don't provide it, she's gonna leave. Like, and you never said that.
No.
But that's just me as a 9. My fear is, like, if I don't people please this girl, she'll leave me. You know? And so I was like, okay, job post tomorrow. Like, but I think actually what ended up happening was I met our very first admin. She was at, like, a home group or a church group night, and I met her, and I was like, actually, would you want this job I was about to post? Yeah. So.
And she was a life-changing. She also, admins do such a better job of protecting your mental health than like you will. Because I think also, like you mentioned, you're a 9 on the Enneagram. I'm a 2. So when someone puts an inquiry saying, I'm in so much pain, I'm literally, like, dying, I am very like, can you come in right now?
Right.
I would love to help
you. Like, I have no boundaries. Let me help you.
I have no boundaries. Let me help you. So that was also...
Squeeze you in on my lunch.
Oh, yeah. I wasn't taking lunch. I was coming in early. I was staying late, which, like, again, you had set up this... We talked in the last episode about the sustainability. I was basically telling Becky, I was like, this is getting kind of unsustainable because I was seeing all these patients, and then if I took a lunch, I was calling back inquiries, sending off plan of cares, all of that stuff. Not for that long. Like, nobody panicked. It was a few months. It got to the point where I was like, hey, like, I really think that, especially between the two of us, this is worth, like, another person. And then our sweet admin came on and she changed our lives forever.
She set boundaries for us.
She did. She was like, these things that you're doing don't make sense.
Right.
And we were like, you're right. And she would just, like, enforce cancellation policies and just, like, be more respectful of our time than we would, which I think is a lot of the value of admins. Like, we're talking about first hire.
I know.
Not. But it was a big part of that journey of me getting to grow as a therapist and a leader and a director. Was, like, having support.
Well, and I think that's important to know for, like, anyone thinking about hiring another PT before they have an admin. Like, you're going to need an admin.
Eventually, Like,
you are, to protect both of y'all's, but especially your hires, like, burnout, you know? Like, we're not trying to burn people out unless you want them to quit and go somewhere else. So, she wasn't technically, like, my first hire, but she mattered to my first hire. Which is you.
I know.
So.
Well, and I felt very, like, seen when I was, like, I knew I was asking for something that was going to cost money. And we were a very small business at that time. Like, we were doing great, but I think I even remember saying, like, I'll see like as many patients as possible as needed to like cover the cost of an admin. Because I was just like, between being pulled in all those different directions, I was like, I could see patients all day if I didn't have to call their doctor and chase down the signature and like make sure I had to do all this other stuff. So
oh my gosh, yes. Well, yeah, and it's like it pays for itself, really, because that's like people's biggest fear. And this, we're gonna say this all the time. I feel like this could be a whole other episode.
It will
be. The admin. We'll do it, because that's a big question that I get.
Yeah.
But it's like as soon as you take that leap, you don't realize what they're taking off your plate that's gonna let you do the other money-making tasks, which is not just seeing patients. Like that's what generates revenue, quote unquote. But it's like, what are you doing to move the needle forward for the business to make way for your next 11 therapists that we have now? So stay tuned for how that happened. But yeah, dang, it's crazy to look back on like little old North and East Dallas. Oh my gosh.
And our completely virtual admin, like she was never in person at all. Ever.
She had her little one at home.
Yeah. And she was like quote unquote part-time and then slowly was like not part-time at all.
Right, working way more than we ever anticipated, which is what I warned my peeps also. I'm like, just, don't tell them they're only going to work 10 hours a week.
Yeah. If you do a good job, which everyone is hopefully striving to do, then you amplify your workload, and then that's when we need to hire someone else. So, which is exactly what I did, and then that's exactly what our admin did too. And so frankly, you did from the beginning. Yeah. So, it's crazy.
Oh my gosh. What a wild ride.
It was literally crazy, but it was so good, and like, we have both just grown in like, again, like leadership and boundaries and goals outside of just surviving. Because Genesis was really in the like survive the early stages.
Yeah, it was. Business. It was survive and like figure out what the heck is happening.
Yeah, because it was also COVID.
Yes. Oh my gosh, COVID. Yeah.
Yeah.
How quickly you forget. So I think like looking back, we were going to sum up like when to make your first hire and how to do it.
Yeah.
Like I would say like you need to have some sort of either you're overworking yourself to the point where like if you deleted those 1 or 2 days, that's a wait list, or you have a wait list.
Yeah.
And I would say a wait list of like a month, honestly, for evals.
You had a wait list when you wanted to hire me, and Kendra was already working at that point. Yeah. So that was kind of unique, is that you had someone to be like a temporary help. But yeah, and we had to figure out how to convince people that they should see me.
Oh my gosh.
Which was also hard.
Which is so funny that's still a thing. We just had someone trying to book today's Monday, last week, to book with Dr. Jess here at Midlothian, and they were like, oh, it's not going to be Dr. Becky, she's not taking like new patients, okay, I'll just go elsewhere. And our admin had to be like, whoa, wait, and like do the whole spiel of like Dr. Becky handpicked Dr. Jess to be at Midlothian, she trained her herself, like the whole thing, which is like essentially giving me way more credit than I actually like did, but like I did do that. I did do all of that. But, like, also, Jess put work in, too.
Yeah, and you picked Jess because she's great.
Correct. Because she's it. So, anyway, the patient ended up booking, so we're all fine. But yeah, so looking back, like, have a wait list or be, like, treating too many days a week that if you deleted whatever days you don't want to be treating, that makes a wait list, right? So, have a wait list. And then know, like, what you're looking for. Like, I was looking for, like, I vividly remember, I want someone nice that my patients are going to like. Like, I can teach her the pelvic floor. Yeah. But I can't teach her, like, how to be nice.
No. Yeah.
And how to, like, make patients like you. So, like,
or get other providers to like you.
Yeah.
That was the big thing, was like, once I started doing marketing on my own, because there was patients who were coming from providers who referred to Dr. Becky.
Right.
And that's great. And you're phenomenal. And some patients didn't care. And once I got to marketing to providers who were referring to Dr. Corrie, was when my caseload exploded.
Like
and
specifically to you.
Because I went and created a relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, which is hard to find someone who can do all of those things. Totally. But I do think for a first hire, that's important. I think once you get bigger, it doesn't matter as much.
It's not as much. Well, and if you're not putting them at their own location.
Yes.
I mean, you still need to be able to have patients not see you and see the new person.
Yeah.
But like, it's a little, they don't have to do like as much if they're not at a separate location. Also.
Yes. Because the referrals are just going to come
They're coming to like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you're like, well, she's like across the hall.
Yeah. She's
We're
here
both
if you really
but
need her.
like, yeah. So.
No, I think you were very like aware of that and honest about that. Like you were like, I need someone who can treat patients, do marketing, and do admin.
Yeah.
And again, I was like, I can do all those things.
You're like, I can and I will.
I can and I will. And I did. It all worked out.
Yeah.
So, but it is a unique, like, that's not what we're trained to do in PT school.
Right.
So, you have
I
to
knew
find
that you
someone.
could.
Yeah. I had a lot of work experience that didn't go on my application,
Right.
obviously,
Yeah.
because they tell you to only put like things you did in PT
pertinent.
school on there. Yeah. But I had tons of just frankly like experience in like small business marketing, running a small business in undergrad, like things like that, which I think in my interview I was like, oh yeah, I can answer phones. I can talk to people.
Well, and I think you also spoke a little bit to like when you were doing your personal training stuff. You were like, yeah, I had to go get my own clients.
Yeah,
like,
I did. I was a personal trainer in PT school. You just do your own thing, set your own schedule. It was like, no problem.
It was like, great. This is basically the same.
Kind of is, yeah. So, I don't know. It was a wild ride, but it was fun.
A wild ride. And it only got
wilder. Yeah. So, we'll get into that in the next episode.
Oh my gosh, yes.
That's kind of the tidbits. And like I said, we'll just get in more and more into the nitty and gritty every
literally all the things. Yes. So. The team, the growth, not knowing anything about business, like how to market, who to market to, all the things. We're going to cover all that.
We're casually like, oh yeah, I could just like market, but we'll get into what that means.
True. Oh my gosh. Yes.
So, okay. Y'all check out the show notes for where to find us on literally everything. Send us your questions over Instagram and whatnot. And we'll see you guys next time.
And always stay tuned because we're always launching some new shit. So
don't miss out.
Oh, goodness. Okay. Bye.
Bye.